Story 1. I have had gout since my early 20s. It was hereditary, not caused by weight or alcohol, and I was in good shape at the time. My father had it too. He sprayed WD-40, which stands for water displacement, 40th formula, on his joints and swore by it. I tried it because the pain was so bad. I figured why not. Felt better, but I think the relief came from the cold compressed air. I still laugh about that. Story 2. I have chronic migraine. I was told to rub a lemon slice on my forehead. Story 3. Endometriosis. My doctor suggested I get pregnant at 19 years old. Story 4. I have osteoarthritis in the lumbar region of my spine. The number of people telling me I should see a chiropractor and get adjusted is crazy. The vertebrae look like a crown on the X-ray, and you want me to let someone try to crack my back? I'll stick with my physical therapy. Thank you. Story 5. When I told my parents that I had started taking antidepressants, my father suggested that I eat 1 clove of raw garlic every morning instead. I did not know how to respond. Story 6. I have type 1 diabetes. I have been recommended many things, including green juice mixes, pink smoothies, vitamins for gut health, and others. I have never considered any of them. The only thing that has ever worked in the 35 years of my illness is daily insulin injections. I am on an insulin pump now that tests my blood glucose and automatically injects insulin when needed. That is impressive technology. Story 7. I once had someone tell me that if I went vegan, my rheumatoid arthritis would go into remission. I had been vegan for about 5 years by that time. Story 8. She had cancer twice. I had an aunt who tried to convince me of everything from coffee enemas to colloidal silver. She had breast cancer and tried these remedies until it was too late. It spread to the other breast. She is now working with my oncologist. Story 9. Misdiagnosed with multiple sclerosis. I spent 10 years on horrendously expensive, uncomfortable daily and weekly injections, pills, and infusions before learning I actually have Sjogren's disease and rheumatoid arthritis. Acquaintances, relatives, and colleagues told me to eat clean, do lots of hot yoga, extra bad advice for someone with multiple sclerosis, try certain celebrity vitamins, have children because it would cure multiple sclerosis, and simply will myself to good health. Right? Story 10. I ditched my prescription medications, one of which is a hormone my body does not produce in sufficient quantities, for Himalayan pink salt. Story 11. Someone suggested that I could cure my food allergies by going to a clinic in California that treats allergies with tolerance diets. It was very expensive. The clinic only treated people under 18, and when I looked it up, the founder was very secretive about his methods. Apparently, it only worked for some people. I did not go to the clinic. Story 12. During my first visit with a new general practitioner, he told me I just needed to get my rage out, and then proceeded to kick a trash can in response to my crippling anxiety disorder. Story 13. They formed a prayer circle with me in the middle as they laid hands on me and prayed. They believed the cause of my illness was that my mother must have been a slut. It could not have been that my immune system was damaged beyond all reason. Story 14. Gluten-free. Some people claim that gluten causes many health problems, such as acne, dry hair, itchy eyes, seasonal allergies, menstrual cramps, arthritis, gallbladder disease, and cancer. They say that simply avoiding gluten will cure everything. I have heard similar claims about the raw diet. A family member was recently diagnosed with stage 3 cancer, and they believe they can cure it by eating only raw carrots and broccoli. Story 15. A sideways answer to your question. I remember when I could not get my Plaquenil during the pandemic because people buying horse dewormer were somehow getting prescriptions and hoarding it. The same people who told me to use natural health, I probably eat healthier than they do, instead of taking pills were the same ones taking those pills from people like me a few years earlier. Story 16. I have an autoimmune disease that causes severe fatigue and widespread pain, as well as a spinal deformity that causes chronic back pain. The number of times I have been told to try yoga is staggering. When I was so depressed that I could not even shower, I was told it was all in my head and that I just needed to go for a walk. Everyone acts as if these problems can simply be willed away by meditation and positive thinking. Story 17. The lightning process. I have severe myalgic encephalomyelitis. I am predominantly bedbound and need a wheelchair to go out. Myalgic encephalomyelitis is a complex neuroimmune condition that causes profound fatigue and post-exertional malaise, a poisoned, flu-like feeling after any physical or mental activity. The condition is usually triggered by an infection. The lightning process charges hundreds of pounds to tell you it is all caused by negative thinking and to instruct you to say stop every time you experience a symptom. It teaches people to deny a debilitating biological illness and then recruits them to tell others they were cured, attracting new clients and more money. My brother met one such person and introduced us. Story 18. I am celiac. About 50% of the time it is mentioned, people tell me I should go to Europe so I can eat gluten there. Gluten is the same everywhere. I will not listen to someone who has no experience with the condition I live with. Story 19. My very first therapist told me to eat a big bowl of pasta before bed to cure my lifelong insomnia because carbohydrates make you sleepy. Story 20. Severe depression. The two most absurd cures recommended to me are 1. Just cheer up or smile. You will feel better. 2. Get some exercise. It will make your depression go away. Story 21. A doctor told me that the Mediterranean diet would cure my chronic migraines. Story 22. An ex-classmate told me his pastor planned to take his son to South America so a shaman could exorcise the boy's autism. The classmate was soliciting money from former classmates. I shut that down quickly. I worked for the local health department's vaccine clinics, and he knew that. Story 23. Force yourself to stay awake. I have severe fatigue because of premenstrual dysphoric disorder and other health issues, and exhaustion can trigger seizures. Story 24. Generalized anxiety disorder. Calm down. There's nothing to worry about. Why didn't I think of that? Sarcasm. Story 25. A former therapist convinced me that her cousin was really sick for years and nearly died from a severe chronic illness that doctors could not diagnose or cure. The therapist then claimed her cousin had a spiritual awakening in church, found God, and was miraculously cured of the unknown illness instantly. She said that if this happened to me, I would be completely cured of my alcohol and drug addiction. I stopped seeing her shortly after that bizarre session. I also had a coworker tell me that drinking sarsop tea would help cure my rheumatoid arthritis and inflammation. Story 26. Not absurd, just exhausting. Have you tried yoga? I have hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. My first back surgery was at 33, and I have had 2 more since then, as well as multiple hospitalizations and other surgeries. It is a genetic condition with no cure. Are there things I can do to alleviate my chronic pain? Sometimes yes. Believe me, I have tried them all. But anyone who thinks that yoga, Pilates, and strength training offer a cure-all for chronic pain is delusional. Moreover, the vast majority of specialists I have seen over the past 2 decades have strongly advised me to avoid yoga. Hyperextending when I am already hypermobile is one of the worst things I could do to my body. Story 27. The number of people who think you can simply stop being depressed by thinking positive thoughts. Story 28. Eat mangoes to help with my arthritis. I'm deathly allergic to mangoes, and the person pushing this was well aware. Story 29. Chronic depression and insomnia. I thought that if I simply closed my eyes and stopped thinking, I would fall asleep. Or I believed that if I accepted God and rejected the mark of the beast, I would be healed. What actually helped were 3 different antidepressants taken simultaneously, therapy, 2 stays in a psychosomatic hospital, and medications for my endometriosis. Story 30. I have multiple sclerosis, and my mother seriously suggested that I get pregnant because she had heard it could lessen symptoms. We were fortunate to catch the disease early, and I have minimal to no symptoms except on bad days. Does she want me to get pregnant to reduce symptoms? What about afterward? Does she expect me to cope with symptoms and a child? I have been child-free since I was a preteen. Do you really think having a chronic illness would make me change my mind? What kind of person would I be to risk passing this illness to a child just to soothe myself? That would be selfish. To be honest, that sounds about right coming from my mother. Story 31. When my child was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, An in-law who had lost a lot of weight sent me a message claiming the right diet cures diabetes and that I just needed to change her diet. I explained that type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease and is different from type 2 diabetes. A second relative said something similar, insisting my child would not need insulin if she followed a health food book he gave me, and I had to explain again the difference between type 2 diabetes and type 1 diabetes. Story 32. Fasting, prayer, and returning to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints after leaving it in adulthood. No, I did not consider that. It did not work for me then, so why would it work now? Story 33. Turmeric. The only place it belongs in my life is on chicken. Story 34. I have severe endometriosis. Doctors suggested I become pregnant to help stave off the disease, which has not been shown to be true. I am infertile because of it, so it's basically impossible and insulting. Story 35. Our neighbors were told to take their daughter to a specific church to cure her tumor. Story 36. People told me so many things. A multi-level marketing Plexus pink drink was supposed to cure my chronic painful bladder disorder and fibromyalgia. I was told to do yoga so often that I tried it, but it did not help. Although I am very flexible, it somehow hurt. Everyone has an answer. It is usually kale and yoga. Losing 117 pounds did not change my chronic pain. Story 37. I have juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. Apparently, celery juice can cure everything. Story 38. I don't know how absurd it is. It probably works for some people. But personally, as someone who has experienced severe depression since 2010, I hate it when people tell me to just take a shower, open the blinds, or take a walk. They always say it as if these things will cure you and are so simple, but it makes me want to sink further into the mattress. I do try to do these things when I have the spoons, but it makes me roll my eyes when even therapists essentially ask whether I have tried better hygiene and whether I could learn not to hate bright sunlight. Story 39. Celery juice to cure Crohn's disease. I was in the hospital at the time, waiting for surgery to remove a severely damaged part of my bowel. I did not consider celery because I absolutely hate it, and I was so sick and in pain that I knew surgery would give me the break I needed. If it took 4 biologic medications to achieve remission, no alternative medicine was going to be more effective. It angers me that people may be drawn in by these ridiculous promises and suffer complications, including death, that could have been avoided. Story 40. I don't know how much it counts as an illness, but I have insomnia that sometimes nothing helps. The amount of medication I take daily is enough that most people would be incapacitated, and sometimes I still try taking diphenhydramine because I cannot sleep. The number of people who find this out and ask if I have tried melatonin is insane. I would say 99% of people ask me that. Story 41. Your pain is all in your head. You just need the willpower to rise above it. I have scoliosis. I did not consider willpower a more effective treatment than the back brace I was there to ask for. Story 42. I have chronic fatigue. People love to tell me to just wake up earlier. Let me get this straight. You think a condition of always being tired, never getting restful sleep, and sleeping through alarms will be cured by waking up earlier? A legitimate doctor once told me, during an appointment I paid for, to just go outside and look at nature and to try eating vegetables to cure my fatigue, as if I had not gone outside or eaten a vegetable in 10 years. Hilariously, yoga can help. Experts recommend keeping a regular sleep schedule, monitoring caffeine intake, and doing light to moderate exercise to increase stamina, and yoga fits that category. Story 43. I get random nosebleeds because I'm on blood thinners. Once one happened at work and would not stop, so my manager told me to tape a penny to my chest because copper would stop it. I did it to appease them, and as it turned out, it eventually stopped. Story 44. Migraines. Solution: drink more water. The next person to suggest this can fight me. Story 45. I have asthma. My grandmother cut a lock of my hair and nailed it at my height to a door jamb, supposedly so it would be cured when I grew past it. She also bought me a chihuahua because she believed it would take my asthma away, and she fed me Vicks VapoRub to cure a cold. Story 46. My best friend uses a wheelchair and experiences all kinds of strange behavior. People often pray over them, But one man who worked at their local supermarket in Italy became obsessed and tried to persuade them to go to Senegal with him for an exorcism. He even took their phone and called his own number so his phone would save their contact, allowing him to keep harassing them. He increased his efforts in the spring, which he claimed was the best season for exorcisms. We complained to the supermarket. The next day, another friend of my friend, also a wheelchair user but who looks completely different. She has only one limb, is slim with long dark hair, while my friend is very pale with short curly hair and all limbs intact, and who did not speak the language, was pulled aside by the manager, taken into the office, and the staff apologized profusely in Italian for the man who wanted to perform the exorcism. She was confused and came to my friend asking, "What did you do?" We could only guess that the man thought God's power was limited. He could make someone with 2 legs walk again, but he could not grow 2 new legs. Story 47. I have severe hospital-level psoriasis. A woman once suggested I rub olive oil on it to cure it. I curtly replied that I had just returned from Italy and that despite my best efforts, olive oil was not a cure for an autoimmune condition. Story 48. The mother of my former housemate gave me homeopathic arsenic and said it would cure all diseases. Story 49. My ex felt that if I drank enough beer, I'd no longer have ritualized obsessive-compulsive disorder, anxiety and depression, or post-traumatic stress disorder. I have a history of substance abuse and was never much of a drinker in the first place. Story 50. I have a strange illness that makes doctors say they do not know. One provider told me that if I believed hard enough, my symptoms would go away. I wished the symptoms away, but they did not disappear. I called her a doctor, but she was a newly graduated nurse practitioner who had completed her coursework in mental health and wellness. She meant well. I am still sick. Cannot work. I have no friends anymore. My life feels empty, and doctors still do not know the cause. Story 51. You are making it up to be lazy. Just get over it. Someone with severe Crohn's disease who was in so much pain I had to lie down 24 hours a day and could barely eat or sleep. It took having surgery and nearly dying from that surgery to truly change my dad's mind. Not really in the spirit of the original poster, but it still counts. Fortunately, treatment aimed at the underlying condition helped, including prednisone, adalimumab, and other therapies. I thought I had a hernia before I saw a doctor and even wore a hernia belt for a while. That was both funny and sad. Story 52. Positive attitude and manifesting good health were suggested as total cures in a judgmental tone. I am on home hemodialysis because of genetic kidney failure, which was apparently attributed to my ancestors holding on to negativity rather than a faulty gene. Update. The brain trust who gave me this advice was in the process of going blind from some off-the-wall condition. He is now blind. Story 53. If we are including severe mental health issues, there is no shortage of people telling me what I can do to get better despite 17 years of therapy sessions, medications, psychiatry, psychology, and even a psilocybin clinical trial. But yes, Jim Bob, getting a new hobby and reading a self-help book will definitely cure my trauma response, crippling social anxiety, depression, and complex post-traumatic stress disorder. By the way, it is all much improved, but there are a few things that are permanent. Story 54. I was told numerous times that I should just have a baby to ease my hormones. The one thing that did help was a hysterectomy, which I had been asking for since my late teens. Story 55. My mom is a major crunchy hippie who convinced a man with cancer to insert colloidal silver tablets rectally. He died. Story 56. I am astounded at how many people suggest marijuana as a cure-all for serious illnesses like heart disease or cancer. If smoking a bowl made people healthy, I think we would see more cancer survivors. Certain formulations of marijuana oil can increase appetite in terminal patients, helping them gain body mass, but it is sadly not a cure-all. Story 57. Someone suggested that my sister could be cured of her breast cancer by drinking her own urine, but I did not pass that suggestion on to her. Story 58. I have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and a fellow nurse told me I just needed to tell myself to focus. Why didn't I think of that? Story 59. Insomnia. Everyone has a tip for trying to sleep, ranging from well-known strategies like dimming the lights before bed to become sleepy to insultingly obvious suggestions such as being told to just lie down and close your eyes. The strangest suggestion was to try sleeping outside to reset my circadian rhythm. I told them I camp, and it does not help. They said I had not stayed outside long enough. They basically meant that if I were homeless, I would sleep better. If anyone else has trouble sleeping, the only thing I've found that works consistently is chain-smoking tetrahydrocannabinol vape cartridges until I feel groggy. I make sure there are at least 12 hours before I have to do anything important, because you can wake up still high. Be careful with any solution you try, because if it works you can become psychologically dependent on it and may feel that sleeping without it becomes harder. You can end up with odd dependencies on substances that are not physically addictive, such as the Tylenol nighttime formulation or melatonin. Story 60. Lime juice for narcolepsy. What are you going to do? Put it in my eyes. That might wake me up for a while. Please elaborate. Story 61. I have life-threatening mental health issues, and someone very close to me suggested I stop taking all of my medications. I would die. I'm sorry you're going through this. If you are in immediate danger, please call emergency services now. If you are in the United States, call or text 988 for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. If you are elsewhere, contact your local emergency number or crisis line in your country. If you would like, I can help you find resources or suggest ways to talk to someone you trust. Story 62. A woman saw my insulin pump in line and screamed at me about how drinking alkaline water could cure my type 1 diabetes. When I ignored her, she screamed much louder that I deserved my condition for my ignorance. Story 63. I have had psoriatic arthritis since 2007. In that time, my mother has suggested the following: turmeric, tapping, umeboshi plums, yoga, meditation, acupuncture, a diet free of sugar, gluten, and dairy, positive thinking, affirmations, past life regression, Reiki, bush flower remedy, juicing, crystals. Story 64. I have chronic psoriasis and eczema. A general practitioner told me to use an antibiotic cream because it is most likely a fungal infection. The dermatologist I saw afterward was not at all happy with that diagnosis. I have also been told by many people to cover myself in Vaseline, though I am not sure that would do anything beyond making my skin very greasy. I have also received the usual advice to get some sun exposure to make it clear up, but I live in a country that is cold and wet for about 9 months of the year. Story 65. I thought yoga and turmeric would cure my genetic joint condition. Story 66. I have psoriasis. I was getting a massage at a spa in a small town in the deep south. The masseuse, a kind older black woman, asked if she could put some ancient Negro secret on the patches on my elbows and legs. Stunned, I squeaked a tentative yes. Ancient Negro secret turned out to be rubbing alcohol. Story 67. I had a herniated disc and was told to apply lavender essential oil while I waited for a surgery slot because I could not move. I did not consider it. Story 68. I have severe anxiety, panic, and post-traumatic stress disorder. I cannot count the number of times I have been told I should just think good thoughts. Story 69. I have severe depression, a couple of anxiety disorders, post-traumatic stress disorder, scar tissue on both of my ovaries, and permanent injuries from a car accident. Several people have told me that having a baby might cure me. Story 70. I have had endometriosis since puberty. I do not remember exactly when, but I was speaking with a male obstetrician-gynecologist about my problems. With a straight face he said, "Get pregnant. That will cure you." I laughed and told him to educate himself about endometriosis. My mother had endometriosis, had 4 children, and continued to bleed until she had a hysterectomy. The nurse taking notes kept her eyes on the screen, but I could see a grin on her face. Story 71. I have endometriosis and have had 3 surgeries in the last 5 years. A coworker told me last week that I should strengthen my core. Story 72. Have you tried rebuking it in the name of God? Hey, you weren't specific about which God. Story 73. I have endometriosis, and someone told me to steam my vaginal canal. Would that burn away the endometriosis? Story 74. Hypothyroidism. My thyroid would not work at all if it were removed entirely. I was told I was not getting enough lemon in my diet and needed to eat at least 3 whole lemons a day, rind and all, and to sit in the sun and absorb its rays as much as possible. Now that I think about it, I am not sure if they were confused and thought I was some sort of 16th century sea pirate sent to the future to find a cure for scurvy. Story 75. I have epilepsy. My former wife thought yelling was a cure for seizures. Story 76. Of course I did not do it, because people who always insist that prayer alone can heal everything through God are mistaken. Story 77. Ankylosing spondylitis. Initially people said things like, why don't you just sit up straight? Have you tried yoga? Maybe your shots are making you sick. You should try stopping them and see if that works. I also heard some essential oil or vitamin is good for this. I have a crunchy aunt who comes up with all sorts of suggestions. Ankylosing spondylitis is arthritis related, and by far the most common thing I have heard since my diagnosis at 21 is, you are too young to have that, laughing my ass off. Story 78. I am a person with type 1 diabetes and have been told that cinnamon is a cure more times than I would care to remember. People truly think that if I eat more cinnamon I can stop taking my insulin. It is crazy. I did not even consider it for a second. Story 79. I have chronic pancreatitis. My uncle's girlfriend at the time, who was very obese and had type 2 diabetes, suggested I have my pancreas removed and said diabetes might be better than pancreatitis. No, I have not considered that. I do not think it is an option, but I could be wrong. Story 80. I have Crohn's disease. During a flare, my coworker told me she never vomits and suggested I try not to when I feel nauseated. Okay, great advice. Story 81. Everyone else has had their fibromyalgia cured by walking every day by really pushing themselves because it makes the body heal faster, like how damaging muscles in weightlifting makes them bigger. You are either not pushing yourself or you may not actually have fibromyalgia. Maybe you could see another doctor or try harder. This was from a genuine registered nurse. I have a lot of respect for nurses. They do an unbelievable amount, more than it appears, but some of them have strange ideas, especially older ones. It did not work. It made me worse for 6 months. Story 82. It is always the yoga and gluten-free, sulfite-free, and ketogenic comments. Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is a genetic condition. Story 83. Fibromyalgia. The most ridiculous supposed cures are telling someone to just do what they need to do and stop thinking about it because they will stop feeling it eventually, and telling them to just go vegan. Story 84. I have interstitial cystitis and severe insomnia. Melatonin and some cranberry juice will make you brand new. Ma'am, I get 0 to 3 hours of sleep from 15 milligrams of Zopiclone, and I will die if I have any cranberry. Story 85. I have genetic hypermobility disorder. A chiropractor was absolutely confident he could fix my faulty genes with a few adjustments. I did not consider it because the same chiropractor had dislocated my elbow during the last session I attended. My parents had made me go when I was a young teenager, but I rebelled after the elbow incident and refused to let him try to fix my problems with a little joint cracking. Story 86. Type 2 traumatic Chiari malformation is a condition caused by severe whiplash that pulls part of the brain out of the skull. My neurologist told me point blank that I should avoid roller coasters and chiropractic treatment. My aunt tried to convince me the neurologist was wrong and urged me to see a chiropractor to reset my neck. I did not consider it. My answer was an immediate no. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.